Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 17 August 2016. Time for another interview from the 2016 Great Eastern Cutlery Rendezvous, the 10th anniversary rendezvous. My first rendezvous, and man was it a great weekend. I've got another interview for you. This will be the last one from this year's GEC gathering. And it's very fortuitous that I bumped into this young man, and I'm going to tell you why. I guess about 8 or 9 months ago, last December, I was blessed to be able to sharpen for a customer a little Barlow knife about the same size as a number 15 TC Barlow. It was called the JBF Champlin & Sons Electric Barlow. JBF Champlin is a knife hawker, marketer, carpetbagger kind of a guy from the 18th century. And the name rights have been passed down through his family. And a young man who married, I think, his great-great-granddaughter kind of had an interest in pocket knives and resurrected the name. And they've made a couple efforts through different manufacturers at bringing knives to market, traditional pocket knives. And the electric Barlow, sort of their most ambitious yet, was manufactured by a guy from Sarasota, Florida, named ESNyx, a guy that I knew nothing about when I reviewed that knife except read his name in their marketing copy. Interesting little knife, the electric Barlow. But it had some issues, and it was one of those knives that sort of left me wanting more. Some of its details were exquisitely crafted, some really neat mechanical details on the inside of the knife, and some of its finishing was exquisite, but it had some glaring errors. And I never, if you go back and view that video, you'll see what I'm talking about. I really wanted to like it, but it had some things wrong. Well, as it would happen, the very first day of the rendezvous, Thursday evening, I think we were still at the factory before we went to dinner, and I overheard a conversation with this young guy talking about one of the owners of the JBF Champlin name. And it was a contentious relationship, and I overheard it and I thought, wait, that sounds familiar. So the young man I overheard was Evan, and I sort of inserted myself into the conversation and found out the story, and it's not a happy one. And time constraints and demands of a customer sort of led Evan to release knives that weren't quite ready for prime time. And he knew that they weren't his best work, and I got to see some of his samples that he brought with him to the show. Wow. What a fine young maker he is. He and I actually spent quite a bit of time together over the course of the weekend, had dinner together a couple times, and stayed in the same resort hotel, and we just kind of got to know each other. And this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as Casablanca would put it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Evan's stuff. He's just a neat young man. His mind is always working, trying to think of ways to improve his process of making traditional slip joint knives. He goes to visit iconic makers like Tony Bowes whenever he can, just to soak up knowledge. Neat kid. I would guess Evan's about 30. And that's very important, I think. We are in the midst of a traditional slip joint pocket knife renaissance, and millennial generation guys like Evan, they're gonna make the difference between whether this craft lives or dies. And you'll see in this interview if Evan Nicolaides has anything to say about it. The traditional slip joint pocket knife will live on and live strong. So take a look, guys. I think you're going to enjoy this. It's day 2 of the Great Eastern Cutlery Rendezvous 2016. This is the 12th of August. And I'm sitting here with Evan Nicolaides, a custom slip joint maker from Sarasota, Florida. How you doing, Evan?
Doing great, thanks.
Good to meet you this week.
Yeah, great to meet you as well.
I became familiar sort of with Evan's work from a contract run of knives, which we will not mention, because it didn't make a great first impression, although it sort of did, but it wasn't representative of Evan's work. He's brought some of his stuff to the Rendezvous, and it's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's just gorgeous. Beautiful stuff. And Evan might not be the most known custom slip joint maker in the world. Oh, look at this, guys. So this is one of his back pocket knives. Let's see if we can focus. What do we call this one?
Yeah, back pocket pattern. It's got 01 tool steel, hand rod blade to an 800 grit, and vintage canvas butterscotch micarta. It's not the Westinghouse paper stuff, but it's definitely good old vintage micarta on there.
Beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
All steel knife?
Yep.
So you're from Sarasota.
Sarasota, Florida.
Horrible working conditions.
Yep.
For you guys that don't know, it's my favorite place in the world, Sarasota. But
I wouldn't dream of leaving.
I wouldn't either. And tell us a little bit about how you got into making custom slip joints. You're kind of a young guy to be making slip joints.
Well, it kind of happened, kind of fell in my lap, really. I was looking for, well, a little background. I don't have any experience with machine work, engineering, mechanics, anything of the sort.
So I think I'll make knives.
Well, I've always been artistic. That's something. And I've always loved having a good hobby. I decided to get into woodworking, and about 6 months into it, a buddy of mine started getting me into pocket knives and brought me an ebony sheep's foot TC Barlow, and that was it for me. I had to have one, and hadn't been able to stop since then.
So you told me your jaw hit the floor when you saw that knife.
Oh, broke my jaw when it hit the floor.
And so you've been a traditional knife junkie ever since.
Ever since. I ended up buying an old shell-handled Imperial Barlow off eBay for about $4, and I wasn't happy with the handle, so I decided to chop it apart one day and see what I could do.
Just chop it apart?
Yep. And by the end of the day, I had new wooden handles and a steel bolster on it, and I'd fallen in love.
Wow. So did you have any concerns, because I would, about chopping up a slip joint and being able to figure out how to get it back together?
I did, but it was a $4 knife. I figured it's worth a $4 experiment. I love doing that kind of stuff. That's something I try to do with my knives. I try to experiment as much as I can with different processes. And when I started out, I was making new styles of micarta with metal layered in with them, copper mesh, aluminum mesh, layered in with different colored canvases and burlaps and that kind of stuff. I've turned more towards the traditional stuff and done a lot of experimenting with bone dyes, bone jigging, trying to replicate that old stuff as much as I possibly can, and just make as good of a quality product as I could as well.
So you have a real heart for the tradition of traditional pocket knives.
Yeah. And something that Tony Bose told me that really struck home for me was, if somebody's been making something for 300 years and they've perfected it for its specific purpose, you're not going to be able to do much to improve on it. And that really struck home for me. And I've got an extreme appreciation for the purpose of the different patterns that are out there, and what they're specifically meant to do, and how they're supposed to fit your hand, and how the blades are supposed to feel with a multi-bladed knife in your hand, and how it's supposed to have a comfort level to it, and a usability that it's been mastered over centuries.
So after you worked on this old Imperial, and then you did you get into repairs and customizing?
Yep, nobody knew. I didn't know how to get into modifying knives. I taught myself how to do everything, and I didn't know how to even get into selling them if I wanted to. And I knew I wanted to sell them to fund a hobby, because why not? I took apart a couple case knives and sold those, and then but at the same time I was looking at creating some cutlery knives, and I figured, if I'm going to be doing this, Why not the best ones out there? So I started taking those apart, putting new handles on them, and next thing I knew, I had a lot of orders, and I was selling them and then doing well. And after a while, I decided to try my hand at making my own customs, and I'm glad I did.
And so we were talking at dinner last night, a little bit this morning, and my impression of you is that when it comes to your process of making knives, your mind never stops.
Yep.
You're always thinking of ways to streamline and improve, make things more repeatable. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the slip joint knife making process is extremely fascinating to me. And someone mentioned last night, I don't think there's 2 slip joint makers out there that have the exact same process. It's a very personal insight into kind of the psyche of what that person, that individual, and you can learn a lot about somebody seeing their knife making process if you can understand that aspect of where they're coming from. And I've been making custom knives for a little under 2 years now. I've just finished my 33rd. I did my run of ESNtls, which I consider a mid-tech, so I've probably done 45 of those.
So you have 2 product lines, the ESNyx.
Yep, ESNyx is sole authorship. If I don't have, if my hands don't produce every single aspect of that knife, it doesn't have the ESNyx.
So those would be your full one-off custom knives.
Yes.
And spell ESNyx for us.
ESNyx.
Okay, so that is
the
stylization. Hey, Randy.
Hey.
Behind the camera is the director, Randy, engineer at Great Eastern Cutlery.
Oh, are you guys actually doing an interview?
Yeah, we are. That's okay.
Wow,
Come around here, Randy.
Major photo bomb, huh?
Yeah, come right here.
Hey.
You have to bend down a little.
I'll just spread.
This is Randy, the chief engineer. This is the guy that makes Bill Howard's designs actually work, right?
And look good.
And look good.
And look good, yeah.
Basically, without you, he'd be nowhere.
Oh, I would. How the heck can I say that? No, I'd be nowhere. Actually, and I don't know where this is going, but I've often thought, God, if Bill got hit by a truck, we'd be in a world of hurt.
We'd all be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Randy was responsible for choosing the restaurant we ate at last night.
Oh, God, that was... I like it. I don't know if you guys, I haven't heard any
Pennsylvania
feedback.
Mexican.
Pennsylvania Mexican.
Hey.
Just get the number 3. You go to El Toro, get the number 3.
It's Mexicans in Pennsylvania.
I've had worse. We're spoiled down in Sarasota though.
Well, what? You got Cubans down there.
There's a lot of Mexicans too.
All right, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I tell you what, though, you can't beat LA because God, dude, we got a lot of everything.
All right, we're going to continue with Evan's interview.
All right, I'm sorry.
See, we were just getting to the good part where he was going to tell about what he makes and what it's called.
And how he steals this person's design and that guy's thoughts.
I heard some stuff got stolen from him.
Yo, it did?
What happened with the old beer scout, Randy?
I mean, beer scout. That was your idea?
Yeah.
What?
Maybe you thought of it simultaneously. And separately.
Yeah. I don't care.
Did you do beer scout or beer buster?
Beer buster came a year later.
Beer scout. So you the one that called it the beer scout when we sent out a scout knife and it was a beer scout?
I put a cap up.
Huh?
I cut it up and I put a cap up on it.
Oh, you did. How big time?
I think there's going to be a big edit right here.
Patent infringement there. Nice.
I don't care. I bought one.
Maybe we owe you one.
Hey, I'll take it if you got it.
You're going to tell Bill, say, this is my lawyer here.
I'll need one too.
This is fee.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys.
Thanks, Randy.
No sweat.
So we were talking about your ESNyx line.
Yep.
And that's ESNyx, which is a stylization of your initials.
Yes.
Right?
So my initials are ESN, and the first 3 letters of my last name are NIC. So I did ESNyc''S. Stylized to ESNyx.
Okay, so you have that line.
And then my essential line is what I would consider a mid-tech line. I've done one batch of those the first half was commissioned to JBF Champion, and the second part was my own knives that I've sold one-offs. Those I consider my med techs because I didn't have sole ownership. I outsourced the parts cutting for water jet based off of a template that I sent them, basically a prototype. They scanned it, water jet cut those pieces, sent it back to me. I then cut the nail nicks into it, drilled the holes out, ground the blades, partially ground the blades, set them up for heat treatment, got them back, finished the blade grinding, adjusted the tangs, put the handles together from scratch, and I mean it's as close to a custom that you can get.
So the outsourced parts of the process are not have nothing to do with the precision of the knife. They're the less precise operations done in a volume fashion by somebody who's set up to doing them in volume, thus making the knife less expensive.
Yes, it was a way for me to be able to produce a custom quality knife at a lesser value.
And for the end user, if I look at an ESNyx knife and an ESNtl knife, am I going to perceive any quality difference?
Should be able to tell the difference.
For a lot less money?
Yep.
Like half?
Well, that's what I'm going towards.
Yeah.
So customs usually start at around 500. ESNyx ESNtl is right around 350 at this point. Further on down the line, I hope to bring it down lower, outsource a little bit more of the process, and make a custom quality, affordable knife that that I can get out into people's hands and have it be worthwhile for them.
And I think that's an emerging segment in the traditional pocket knife market, is that super high quality, let's say $200 to $250 knife. There are a lot of manufacturers racing toward that price point right now. It's either going to, I think it's either going to evaporate because it's not feasible, or it's going to become crowded. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the natural progression to the market right now. Slip joints have been around forever, and they've been a standard. They've been a staple in the knife community. But the popularity dropped off for a long time there with the emergence of a modern folder. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is a lot of people leaving that modern market and moving towards traditional knives, especially with the emergence of GEC making extremely quality knives at a very affordable price for what they are.
Very affordable.
I mean, I would be hard pressed to have an argument saying that GEC wasn't producing the best traditional slip joint knives in the world right now.
Indeed. I'll share a story with you guys that did not make the video series on my Great Eastern Cutlery tour from March 2015 because we were done and the camera was put away, and we were saying goodbye in the lobby at Great Eastern Cutlery, and finally Bill was just being Bill. And he's not worried about being on video, and he's just being Bill. And I asked him, Bill, in 2006 when you invested everything you had to start Great Eastern Cutlery and risked it all, I said, did you ever have any idea that 10 years later that GEC would be at the forefront of a traditional pocket knife renaissance? And without taking a breath or hesitating, completely dead serious, he looks at me and says, that was my plan. And he did
Bill
it.
Howard for you.
He did it.
The man's got a vision. What can you say?
I mean, in 2005, the slip joint market was dead.
Yep. And then
there were case collectors.
Yep. It was a stagnant market. I mean, I would argue that we haven't seen anything even remotely close to this quality since the late 70s.
Maybe before that.
Yeah.
So in the description of this video, I'm going to put all Evan's contact information. Right now, books are closed, correct?
Currently, yes. I'm still on the tail ends of tailoring up my shop. I was full-time for a year. I had a shop rented. It was kind of taking the joy out of it for me, having to worry about putting food on the table with doing something that I really, truly loved. I don't want to.
Completely understand.
I don't want to feel like I need to crank knives out to make money when that's not what I started it for. I want to make the best quality piece that I can, and I want to keep improving, and I want to keep, you know, experimenting with things and trying new things and innovating on my process and following that evolutionary path that I'm so fascinated with.
So if guys want to follow you and kind of wait for as things progress when your products can be available to them, what's the best way for them to do that?
2 ways right now. The exchange in Blade Forums, the custom folders exchange. That's where I mostly post my stuff. Or you can email me and ask me what I've got available. I'm getting into Facebook more now. I started on Facebook about a month ago. So I'll be listing stuff up for sale on Facebook along with Blade Forums. But I've always got something in the works. So if someone's interested, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll be able to chat over it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have another special guest in this video other than Randy before we wrap up. So there's going to be a short pause because we have to find him and her. So hold on just a minute. Okay, guys, we found our special guest, and here he comes right now. Actually, it's Earl the Traveling Pocket Knife, brought to you by Sarah. Check out Earl. Earl the Traveling Knife.
This guy has seen more of the world than most people have.
And you are the current custodian of Earl.
Well, I'm technically Earl's owner, but I'd say Earl now belongs to the community.
Earl now belongs to the community. So Earl has been passed around by collectors, I hear.
Yes. He's been to Canada, all over the U.S., to the UK, Italy, Israel, New Zealand, Australia, and I'm sure I'm missing several other places. Germany.
In Germany?
Yep.
So, and tell us who Earl is. What is Earl?
Earl is a 40s era Schrade Cutco Barlow in beautiful condition. Snappy blades. They're nice and full. They just have a little patina on them, but the owner loved it so much they carved their name into it. And
very nicely, by the way.
Yeah, they did a great job. It looks like it was carved out with a very thin chisel. And to my understanding, I've done some research on Earl. I do believe that Earl was the original owner of this knife, and I actually purchased Earl off of eBay from Earl's son.
That's pretty cool.
So, and I've actually sent the Earl Sees the World link to Earl and his son. I haven't heard back.
That's awesome.
I wanted them to see where this knife is going and where it's going. So I brought him up here with me to come check out GEC. I'm going to be taking him to another special visit in November, and then I'm going to send him back off. So.
And how cool is Sarah?
Sarah's great.
Sarah is one of the few really serious women knife collectors I've met, and she's here at the Rendezvous. And I got to talk with her a little bit this morning. I wish she weren't so camera shy, but she really didn't want to be on at all. But she is sort of Charlie Campagna's copy editor for his world famous tube labels.
Yep. So. Sarah has done a lot of editing and writing for Charlie. So that's her contribution to the knife community, and I think we all know and love Charlie.
We know and love Charlie's labels, absolutely. And I didn't know that Sarah was sort of behind some of them, or maybe most of them. It was really cool to meet her. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy rendezvous day. That's a joke, actually. Mostly it's guys standing around lying to each other and trading knives for 3 days.
Yep.
So it's not a strenuous schedule for us, is it? But it was good of you to come on, and
Thank you for having me.
I'm grateful for being able to get you on the channel.
Great meeting you too.
So check the description, guys, for all Evan's contact information, and perhaps you can soon be the owner of an ESNyx or ESNtl traditional pocket knife from Evan Nicolaides. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Wow, how cool was that, huh? Not only did we get to meet a great new traditional slip joint pocket knife maker in Evan Nicolaides, we also got a special appearance by Randy, the brains behind engineering at Great Eastern Cutlery. Randy is a hoot, by the way, just a hoot. And also we got to meet Sarah, and maybe most importantly of all, we got to meet Earl, the traveling knife. What a cool little Barlow is Earl. Someday I'm going to find a way to get that knife from Evan. I thought you would love to see that interview. I hope you did. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the word is sharp.